Hello, my name is Ralph Danisco. I'm a transportation planner at Stantec and the town's project manager for the Massachusetts Avenue Appleton Street Safety and Accessibility Corridor Project. The presentation that I'm narrating at this moment is the same exact presentation that was given on Tuesday, October 18th at Arlington Town Hall at 7 o'clock to 30 plus participants. I welcome you to spend some time listening to me, clicking through the slides, and going through the other materials that have been put online for this very important project. Thank you. What we're going to talk about in this presentation is shown on this slide. First, just an overview of the entire project, as well as what we've heard from you already and how we've translated that into goals. And then the main portion of this presentation and the meeting and the materials that have been posted online is really a concept design for this area that we very much welcome your comment and review and input on. And after that, we'll talk a little bit about what's going to happen next at this point and how we're going to receive that feedback. First, a brief project overview. The area we're discussing is the area of Massachusetts Avenue centered around the intersection with Appleton Street and the area between Appleton and Forest. This area was the subject of interim plans that the town of Arlington had worked through and implemented on a sort of a short-term interim basis with many folks in the community. However, for this effort, the town has asked us to take a much more comprehensive and extensive look at this larger section of Massachusetts Avenue and extended the limits west to Richardson Ave and east to Quinn Road almost to Fessenden and a little bit down Forest Street, with the idea that this process will result in a design that accomplishes all of the town goals, but does it in a much broader and more comprehensive way with the potential for full reconstruction of the public portions of this area in a way that can be supported by state or other grant money. The process that we've gone through is to come up with something that looks like a final design within a year. We're about 6 months into that process that we started in the middle of the spring. In June, we presented and heard from folks at a public meeting. Then again, through the summer, through online forums and surveys and things, we used all of that input to develop a concept design, which we're presenting to you here today. And we're also looking at potential funding sources for the construction of that design. And based on the feedback we get from the concepts we present, we'll translate those into subsequent design milestones, 25%, 75%, ultimately final design in a way that can be sent to a contractor to be built and priced and implemented. I would say that the place we're at now is that things are sort of concept engineered. We figure them out at a certain level to show that they're feasible, to understand the trade-offs and the implications of the cost, but not worked out all of the final details of exactly how it's going to look and function or the exact dimensions of every last bit here. But we needed to take this pause and share it with folks in the town and with other stakeholders to be clear so that people understood where we are and where we're going. This is just a more detailed project schedule, which shows you where we are here in October at public meeting number 2. And right essentially in the middle of this whole process where we've developed those draft concepts I just discussed. I'd like to finalize these based on feedback and proceed to the next levels of design and ultimately to that bid set. We'll be back at least 2 more times to talk to folks in the community, show them those designs and progress, how we've listened and how we've adapted a design into something that can be built. And of course, there will continue to be materials available online throughout. With that overview of the process, we'd like to get into what we've heard from you already. The goals of this project is defined by you, the town, and its stakeholders, because those are the things we've been trying to design for. As I said, we held a public open house on June 23rd at Arlington Town Hall, where we presented and asked for specific and general feedback on the types of things that people wanted to see, things they've liked, things they didn't like, things that they've seen in other places and in other communities that they wanted to be considered for this area. We brought data on traffic counts and bicycle counts and pedestrian activity and parking and safety issues and crashes and bus activity and anything else that we were able to capture to understand how the area functions and operates throughout the day. We've also had online surveys, we've had maps online that people could mark up and provide us with all sorts of input. We've taken all that feedback and summarized it in materials that are also available online for your view. This slide just shows a few of those comments. They're fairly general, but very representative of the sort of things we heard from folks, again, about things they liked, things they didn't like, things that were important. No, these are not every comment that we heard, but a good representative sample of that general feedback. And on this slide, where we also made one that was specific to bicycle and pedestrian feedback, a good portion of the comments that we received were directly about this: the need for connections to the Minuteman Bike Trail, mid-block crossings, items about really making this a place with a certain kind of feel. And again, we tried to incorporate all of this feedback into a concept design. We also, at that June meeting, presented goals that were derived from Connect Arlington, from other town processes and similar efforts that you and the town and others have been engaged in, from our own knowledge, based on that of what we thought people wanted to see. We asked you to comment on them. We asked you to vote on them. We asked you to put dots next to the ones you like. We asked you to highlight things and cross stuff out. And what we've done is taken that feedback and summarized it to something that's a little bit tighter and easier to manage and to understand. And essentially, the goals that we're showing here are the viewpoint that we took with the town in order to develop a design, which is to say a design shall be successful if it accomplishes these things, or the level to which it has accomplished these things, which are the goals that we care about. Things like making it safe for all, regardless of who you are, to walk through, bike through, or drive through, or anything in this area. To make this a place with its own identity. To ensure local access for all the people that live and work and shop and play and go to school and church and all the other things that you do right here. And can they do this with this design in a way that feeds into larger sustainability and resilience goals that the town and certainly many others are concerned with. So with that, let me get into the concept design, which you're not going to be able to fully understand from this presentation. I strongly encourage you to click on the links that show you where the full design is, and do that in a way that allows you to zoom in and zoom out and jump in on any particular element that you may be interested in or concerned about. And strongly encourage you to spend time with that. And as we approach the design, we think it's very important to think again, not only about the goals and what we're trying to achieve, but what some of those challenges are from a much broader perspective. One issue that we've observed is that the corridor, at least the study corridor, is sort of disjointed from the broader Massachusetts Avenue experience. You can see even from this graphic how it sits at the juxtaposition of a curve, both to the east and the west. So as you're approaching it from either direction, where Mass Ave is a lot less treated and more wide open, what happens is you enter this curve and now you're greeted with the improvements that have been made in a certain kind of area that's much more mixed and multimodal, and you're trying to understand how all of those things work together. If you're entering at speed and you're not used to doing this, you don't realize the kind of environment you're entering into. So as we approach the design, a big part of what we're trying to achieve is to announce the fact that this is a different place, both visually and physically, as you are approaching it from much further back. You'll see this as you're driving or riding in a bus or on your bike or anything else, that straight ahead, this place starts to look and feel different, and you will adjust your behavior accordingly. And that's really important, because some of the specific challenges in this area have to do with those sight lines. They have to do with visibility. They have to do with solar glare. They have to do with how the road lane alignments work in a way that just generally allows you to kind of speed through here a little bit now and not pay attention to all the other things that are happening. A successful design, as we just talked about in the goals, must bring all of those things to bear and must enable people to behave in the way that is best, that is both protected and best suited for each of them. So we wanted to take all these factors into account in the design and fix them as best we could and address all of the concerns that folks have. And again, just another sampling of some of those concerns or specifics from the online survey, from neighborhood listening sessions, from the open house. You may recognize many of these statements, you may have made some of these statements. We think this is a good and representative sampling, and the full complement of things that we heard is available online. Now, this graphic that you see here shows our collective recommended approach. This is the concept engineered design that we're asking you to take a look at and pay attention to and mark up and ask questions about. And again, it runs from Quinn Road in the east to Richardson in the west along Massachusetts Avenue, covers the intersections of Appleton Street and Appleton Place. This design, this concept, incorporates dedicated bicycle facilities throughout this stretch, which could be at street level or at sidewalk level. We're a little agnostic about the best way to approach that right now and have built in the possibility for either. It tries to preserve as much curbside use as possible, especially in the most important places. It has traffic signals to Appleton Street and to Forest Street at Massachusetts Avenue, along with left turn lanes that allow for safer accommodation. It preserves as much of the character and feel and operation of the area as we can, while improving the things that have been deficient. The brown areas that you see here represent new pavements, sidewalk extensions, bump outs, plaza space, all things that can be treated to make this a special place. Crossings are shortened, and we've added crossings as well. We're preserving as much of the operations and activity as possible. Yet there's a ton of detail on this plan. You'll be able to zoom in and out on it. It's hard to read just looking at it at this scale, but we very strongly encourage you to go in and leave your individual comments and questions. We welcome that. We're asking you to do that. One thing to really note here on this plan that allowed us to accomplish many of the things that have been asked for in the past, including left turn lanes and parking and bicycle facilities that the current alignment doesn't allow for, is we took detailed engineered survey plans of this entire area because ultimately our goal is to reconstruct it. And one thing we're able to determine is that the sidewalk on the north side of the site is fairly wide on the public side and includes some additional space in front of the buildings as well. So by reallocating part of that sidewalk to create a separated bicycle facility, it allows us to minimize the amount of trade-offs we have to make. So by using that, we can retain parking on the north side and create left turn lanes and create dedicated bicycle facilities and preserve, a lot of the existing character while maintaining a fairly wide sidewalk. It's important to think about this. We show options that do not include it, in which case you do not get to incorporate all of the elements that I just described, but we think this is a really strong benefit of this recommended approach and part of what you're able to do when you take a much broader, more comprehensive and holistic look at what could be achieved and are willing to go after the funding to be able to accomplish that. As I said, our plan includes signalized intersections, fully operational, protecting all moves intersections at Appleton Street and at Forest Street. It makes the area safer because you minimize conflicts. You create pedestrian crossings, you create bicycle crossings. As an example, one thing that this does is we heard from many folks about the difficulties of exiting as a vehicle from Burton Street onto Mass Ave or even across to Forest Street. Today that intersection is wide open. It can be hard to see to the east and the west. You can sort of see the curve on this graphic here. And if you're coming out of Burton Street, you can feel like you have to kind of inch out and sort of take a leap in order to be able to turn left or right. By having a signal here, that move would come out controlled. You would have a green light. That makes it a lot easier and safer and probably faster to come out at Burton Street. We're also bumping out many of the corners, extending those sidewalks. And again, we've concept engineered them enough to know that they work for trucks and commercial vehicles and everything else, but done in a way that still reduces kind of vehicular turning speed, meaning you're going to have to go slower around these curves, which makes it safer for everybody, especially the students that are coming from the school and are a big part of the pedestrian environment here. We're improving sight lines on Mass Ave and approaching it because we're directing vehicles to be much closer to the double yellow line as opposed to the wider lane that they currently have in many of these areas. It improves your visibility as a driver to somebody in a crosswalk, improves your visibility as a pedestrian to see a car, and helps you orient yourself, whoever you are, as you're entering this area. We're retaining parking or curbside use in some of the most important places in the plan, in front of the commercial areas, in front of the apartment building, close to Richardson. Anything we're showing that's gray here and highlighted is places where we think we're able to preserve that curbside use. Very much build from details of parking analysis that the town had conducted about where people park and which spaces are the most utilized. That's all been incorporated into this recommendation. As I said, we've included protected bicycle accommodations throughout this entire stretch, which then feather into either end of Mass Ave with what's already there. These could be, again, at street level or at sidewalk level, but either way would be inside of parked vehicles or buffered from travel lanes in a way that provides as much safety and protection as can be. That includes at the intersections where you'll have left turn lanes or crossing pieces for bicyclists, which are shown in green here. You might also have bicycle indications at the signals along with pedestrian indications, perhaps similar to what exists in the town center. There'll be new pedestrian crossings. We're showing a few. We may be able to add more. You're certainly welcome to recommend additional places where we may want to see those as part of this design. And both the existing and the proposed crossings will be shorter. You'll cross less pavement to go from one side to the other because we're bumping some of those curbs out, especially at the main Appleton Street, Appleton Place intersection. And again, those areas that are highlighted in brown are potential amenity spaces, plazas, things that can be landscaped or treated or have other features on them, street furniture. We can make them pretty. We can add special elements. We have an opportunity to celebrate the local character. No, we have not. No, we have not done that yet because we're still wanting to make sure that folks are in agreement with where they are and how big they are and what they look like. But we've been working with our team to know that these are substantive spaces that something can be done with. Just a few precedent examples in Arlington and in neighboring towns that show a little bit about what we're doing here. So, an example at Forest and Summer Street right here in Arlington, just on the other side of the Minuteman Bikeway. Some changes that were made about a decade ago to kind of narrow one of these intersections and channel it and add some pedestrian space and make it a lot safer and minimize conflicts. Very similar treatment just recently in Winchester on Main Street at Highland Avenue, where that comes in. And again, you can see that in the top right of both of these drawings, where that wide open space has been treated, channelized, and still preserves all of the operations, but actually creates a much nicer and safer environment. And again, in downtown Melrose, or just north of downtown Melrose, Lebanon Street, Porter Street, you can see another place where a wide expanse of pavement has been treated and channelized and created in such a way that improves the pedestrian, the bicycle, the vehicular environment. There's countless other examples of where other communities have done this. We strongly encourage you, if you can think of others or things that you've seen in other places that you want to see included here, please, we welcome those comments. All right, this is the point in the meeting where we ask people to go back to the room and pay attention to the board and go up and mark up the maps. We're asking you to do that as well, in this case, virtually. Everything that was available at the meeting is also available online. It's all clickable. It's not editable. You can't change it, but you can write notes on it. You can comment on other people's notes. You can make marks. You can ask questions. And we'll do our best to address all of those things as we move to the next round. As I said earlier, the concept that we discussed and I presented is our recommended concept. We know there are other ways to achieve similar things. So on the board, when you get to it, when you go to click on it, you'll see a number of alternatives, both for how Appleton Place is treated and also for the cross-section between Appleton Street and Forest Street. We've shown what some of those trade-offs might look like, including in alternatives 2 and 3. If you do not change the sidewalk and do not repurpose some of that, you can still accomplish many of the things you want in that cross-section, but fewer of them. You're essentially trading parking for a left turn lane in alternatives 2 and 3 on the right here, where you do not repurpose part of the sidewalk. You still have the bicycle facilities, but you can get left turn lane or parking. In the recommended design or in alternative 1, what you're really trading off is the left turn lane or parking, but you get parking already on the one side. Right? This is an advantage of repurposing part of that sidewalk. Looking at it. On top of your screen here are various alternatives for how you might treat Appleton Place. Again, our recommended plan includes a narrowing of the opening to Appleton Place, which would still be one way away from Massachusetts Avenue. The alternatives are kind of leave it the way it is in alternative 1. In alternative 2, to close it entirely, which creates a much bigger plaza and amenity space. But, you know, folks may have opinions on what that means for access and operations. And alternative 3 is where you bring that left turn lane to Appleton Street further back, so you can also have a protected left turn onto Appleton Place, and the trade-off there is you lose a little bit of curbside space on that stretch. So as I said, we encourage you to spend some time to think about all of these, to look at them, to ask questions, to click on the other links, to make sure you spend time with this. Tell us what you like. Tell us what you don't like. Tell us what would be really helpful if you need more information. You should be able to not just add comments, but to see comments that other people have also made and to add comments on top of those. This period will be open for a little while, probably through the beginning of November, a couple of weeks at least. I don't think we fully determined what a close date is, but assume that within the next few weeks, we're going to have to move on and take all those comments and do something about them. We need to progress the design. We need to refine this concept, 25% design, so we can hit our overall schedule. We can meet those grant funding requirement deadlines. And again, we'll be back to you at least a couple of more meetings in the winter and spring, as well as continue to post information online. And just to go back to the overall schedule, what we're going to do is move from this design to something that's more refined that we can take to a 25% level. Start to really align this with those funding opportunities, answer all the questions that we will need to answer from any of the funding authorities. Again, we'll be back publicly, probably in the winter, to share again with folks online and hopefully in person, and answer more questions and show what our progress has been. So please, please, please spend some time with this. Go online again, look at all the materials that have already been uploaded there. And thank you very much for your participation and for your interest. This is the end of the presentation. Thank you.